Hey, what's up, guys? Pete Alonso here from the New York Mets, and I'm here with Alfred. And I just want to say thank you so much to all you guys for listening to the Metropolitan Report. It's a really awesome show. You got some great insight on Mets baseball, and yeah, it's a great place where Mets baseball is talked about, and we got a lot of really fun stuff coming up this year. And a lot of really great things coming from this team in the clubhouse, and I'm really excited to keep the ball rolling. And it's been such a fun season, and I'm really thankful for everybody coming out to the ballpark and supporting us, and it's just been absolutely tremendous. So thank everybody for listening to the Metropolitan Report, and Alfred, keep doing your thing, and as always, LFGM.
Hey, everybody, it's Alfred Parsard Jr. back with another Metropolitan Report. And before I begin this edition of the Metropolitan Report here this morning, I just want to remind everybody, if you've been loving the content, if you've been loving these episodes of the Metropolitan Report, and you've been following the coverage, whether you agree with the things I say, you disagree with the things I say, or you just overall like the show, don't forget to go below and hit that subscribe button. That way, when we go live with a new video, you'll be one of the first ones to know. So again, I appreciate the love and support that everybody's been showing here so far in the 2025 season since I've decided to bring back the Metropolitan Report. And again, if you like what you see in the content, make sure you subscribe to get notifications to whatever device it is that you use to get notifications here on YouTube. And as always, if you know other Met fans, send them the show and see what they have to say. So, here on the Metropolitan Report today, we're going to go over the Mets' recent series against the Miami Marlins that ended the homestand, and we will look forward to their series that starts tonight, starts a little late, 10:05 p.m. Eastern Time, against the Athletics out in Sacramento. We can talk about what we liked and what we didn't like. Before we get into the show, I know I said on the last Metropolitan Report that the next one would have been on Thursday, which was yesterday, but due to some scheduling conflicts, I do apologize for those of you who are anticipating a new report. But we're one day late, but we're still in time because, again, the Athletic series does not start until 10 p.m. tonight. My apologies on that. But where we begin, the New York Mets ended the homestand. Last Metropolitan Report, we covered the home opener series against the Toronto Blue Jays, where the Mets swept the Blue Jays. Then on Monday, they started a series with the Miami Marlins, where they took 2 out of 3 from the Marlins. They won the series and they finished a homestand with a 5-1 record, which is amazing, tremendous. They won on Monday, 2-0. Had a great offensive game on Tuesday in the frigid cold, mind you, where they won against the Marlins 10-5 in a game that was supposed to start at 7 o'clock, but due to frigid outdoor conditions, and that game was freezing cold, they moved the game from 7 up to 4 p.m. just to, get the game over with so the players could be safe, didn't have to risk being out there in the cold at night when the temperature would have dropped even lower. And then on Wednesday, the Mets got blanked 5-0 in a bad offensive showing and a bad pitching game. Going over that series, I want to highlight the following 3 New York Mets. You could cue up the graphic. As you see there, standout Mets in this Miami Marlins series. These 3 players, phenomenal, tremendous. The Mets don't win this series without these guys. We'll start off first with friend of the show and the man who is leading the team in both home runs and RBIs. The man carrying this Mets offense, the man who, if he keeps this up the rest of the season, should deserve to be paid. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Morgan Alonso out of Tampa, Florida. Pete went 5 for 11 in this Marlins series with an average of 454, 3 extra base hits, 4 RBIs, and he had 2 walks. Then we go over to the Mets' big free agent acquisition, the generational talent, the best free agent signing, or the biggest free agent signing, I should say, of the offseason. The man who will be in Flushing for the next 15 years, hopefully if he doesn't opt out in a couple of years. That will be El Pacheco himself, Juan Soto. He went 4 for 11 in the Miami series, a batting average of 363, one RBI, no extra base hits, and 2 walks. And then, of course, the franchise himself, Francisco Lindor, finally kicking it into gear. He went 5 for 12, a 416 average. Out of these 3 players, he was the only one with an extra base hit that was actually a home run. And he had 2 RBIs, however, did not draw any walks. So these 3 guys, the top of the Mets lineup, of course, Lindor leads off, Soto bats second, and Pete bats third. And this 1-2-3 combination, I tell you, is a very impressive one, especially because you look at 1-2-3 in all of Major League Baseball, and maybe with the exception of the Dodgers, and I'd argue the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't and all right, and I'll give it to the Yankees because they've been producing, but I don't think there's a better 1-2-3 in all of baseball outside of those 3 prior teams that I've mentioned. All right, an honorable mention, the Padres. But I think the Mets definitely top 5, 1-2-3 in all of baseball. You got 3 guys who can all produce, who can all get solid hits. They're solid major contributors to their team's success. And I know I've been on the Pete Alonso gravy train for a while, but you got to think about it. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again until I'm blue in the face. Pete Alonso was a guy who bet on himself, had a down year last year on a contract year, comes back on a deal that the Mets wanted. Not what Pete wanted, but what the Mets wanted. And now we find ourselves in a situation because Vladimir Guerrero Jr. re-signed with the Toronto Blue Jays, meaning Pete Alonso is going to be the big name first baseman of free agents should he opt out after this season, which if his season is on the trajectory that I think it's going, if he could keep this up, he rightfully should opt out. And if he could keep this up all year, then obviously the Mets would be very foolish to let him walk and let him go. There was a situation in Tuesday's game, runners on first and second. Hayden Senger was on second, the catcher. Lindor on first. And Juan Soto walked up to the plate on Tuesday. And the Miami Marlins skipper, their manager, decided to intentionally walk Juan Soto. Check how crazy this is. He intentionally walked Juan Soto to get to Pete Alonso. Now, Pete Alonso, earlier that day, had already smacked a double. And you walk Pete Alonso. You walk Juan Soto to get to Pete Alonso. And what does Pete do? Now, obviously, that's disrespect because you only intentionally walk a guy to get to the next batter because you think you could get the next guy out. Pete Alonso saw the disrespect. He took the disrespect, and he launched the disrespect in the gap and had a bases clearing 3 RBI double. Pete Alonso's having a fantastic season, folks. Overall, for the entirety of the season so far, Pete Alonso batting .333, which is impressive because in a league where the league average is maybe around 250, 265, and I always say 250 is the new 300 by today's standards, but Pete Alonso batting .333, 3 home runs and 15 RBIs, OPS 1.118. Say what you will, but Pete Alonso, with a hot start to this season, he has come out here like a man on a mission. And this weekend, the Mets have a series against the Athletics. The Athletics are one of the worst teams in all of baseball. They have a few good young players on offense, but most of their position players can't drive in runs or score runs, and most of their pitchers might as well be human piñatas because that's how much they get hit. So I expect Pete Alonso to continue this hot streak out west in Sacramento when the Mets later today, or tonight I should say, because it's a 10:05 Eastern time start. But I expect big things out of Pete Alonso in this series against the Athletics, who are tied for last, even though the season is young. They're tied for last in the AL West at 5-8. Meanwhile, the Mets tied for first coming into play today. They're tied with the Phillies atop the NL East at 8-4. Juan Soto. Now, I know the numbers as far as production, driving in runs, hitting pitches over the fence. I know it's not there. But the man still hit 363 in this series. He drew 2 walks, albeit 1 intentional, and he drove in a run in 3 games. A lot of people saying, oh, why are you hyping him? He's only had 1 run in 3 games in a series. Again, in a league where it's hard to hit 300, Juan Soto hit 363 in that series against the Marlins. Went 4 for 11. You got Hall of Famers in Cooperstown who failed 7 out of 10 times and are still enshrined with a plaque forever. All you have to do in baseball is succeed 3 out of 10 times, and you have good production. And the man went 4 for 11, hitting 363. The hits are there. And people have to remember, Juan Soto is batting second in this lineup. He's batting second. He's getting on base. Because if he and Lindor don't get on base, there's nobody for Pete to drive in. So keep that in mind before you talk about, well, Juan Soto doesn't have runs batted in. He doesn't drive in runs so far this season. How are you so impressed with his output so far? Because the man is hitting for average. That's how. He's drawing walks. He's getting on base. And even though he may not have a hit streak, he's gotten on base at least once every game this season. You can look at the stats. Go look at the game. Go on MLB.com and look at the game log. If you think I'm lying to you, which I don't do because I do a heck of a lot of research when I do this show. Juan Soto always finds a way to get on base. Whether it's a walk, single, double. Sure, he hasn't had the home run or the RBIs, but again, he's hitting second in this lineup. And you got to remember that the bottom half of the lineup, which would hit before him in certain innings, they're just not getting the job done, which more on that in a certain player later. But like I said, Juan Soto, and I stand corrected, Juan Soto has been on base every single game this season except one, which was Wednesday's game against Miami. Other than that, the guy has been an on-base machine, whether it's a walk, whether it's a hit of some description. And I expect Juan Soto also to damage the Athletics this weekend. And then finally, Francisco Lindor. Francisco Lindor, in his Mets tenure, he and I have a love-hate relationship because Lindor, notorious for slow starts. Lindor has always had rough Aprils and rough Mays, and the first half of June is always rough. But once the weather turns warm, Francisco Lindor actually is a heck of an offensive player. We all know about his defense. Nothing bad I can say there about Francisco Lindor's defense. Lindor in this series against Miami, however, has shed the slow start label, at least for now. Lindor went 5 for 12, again, a .416 average, 1 home run, 2 RBI, including that home run in Tuesday's game. Mets were down 2-0 early. He cut that lead in half with 1 swing of the bat in the Mets' first at bat that game. I think Lindor is going to be all right. Even if this little hot streak that Lindor has regresses this weekend in Sacramento, I'm not mad at it. Again, Lindor is a historically slow starter. Even back to his days in Cleveland, historically slow in April. Not a good offensive player in the months of April historically, which is weird because in the years of the World Baseball Classic, he's very dangerous. But nonetheless, Lindor, he's going to be all right. I expect a great season out of him. But I was very happy to see Lindor start hitting in this series. I mean, he had a couple of hits in the Toronto series earlier in last week, or earlier in the homestand, I should say. But Lindor, I was glad to see this production. I'm happy that his batting average is higher than than 100 in the month of April. Francisco Lindor. Now again, Francisco Lindor bats leadoff, and he plays on a team where the bottom of the lineup does not really turn the lineup over. So it's gonna the RBIs are gonna be few and far between. I'd be very surprised if Lindor gets to 90 RBIs this season, considering how the bottom of this Mets lineup is not producing. I mean, that always could change, but from what I'm seeing right now, if that does stay the same, it's going to be hard to see him get to that RBI point, especially batting leadoff. But Lindor batting 244 so far in the month of April, and the month of April still has a couple more weeks left. And again, one homer, 5 RBIs total. So Lindor, great series against Miami. Anytime you have a guy who plays a series and bats 416 in the series, I have nothing bad to say at all. So this weekend, starting tonight against the Athletics, look out for Pete Alonso to continue his dominance. Look out for Juan Soto to maybe wake up the bat and maybe get a home run this series. I'm predicting Soto gets at least one home run against the porous Athletics pitching, and Lindor should be able to keep the momentum going. Now, we just talked about three Mets that were on hot streaks, but a Met that's not hot at all, I wouldn't even call him lukewarm. I don't even think cold is the right word. It's just frozen. Let's talk about Brett Baty. And I'm gonna stand on my soapbox here and go on a rant. I think it's time to end the Brett Baty experiment. Not take him off second and try to see if he could back up Vientos at third. No, he needs to go. And I'm not talking about get on the shuttle to Syracuse. Mets just need to cut bait and count their losses. I'm sorry. It is time to get rid of Brett Baty. If this was Brett Baty's second year in the majors, I'd be like, okay. But we have seen this song and dance out of Brett Baty one too many times. And you know what the thing about Brett Baty is, and I'm going to be completely honest here. I mean, I'm always honest, but this is going to be brutal honesty here. We saw Brett Baty in 2022. He had a cup of coffee. First full big league season, 2023. We saw him play 50 games last year. Before early in the season, mind you, he made the roster out of camp and ended the year in Syracuse. And he started this season with a great spring. Matter of fact, you know what? Before I continue, if I had to give the award for the greatest con man of spring training, it would be Brett Baty. Brett Baty. Now here's a story of Brett Baty, folks. Brett Baty would have had no shot to make this team had Jeff McNeil not got injured in the spring. That is a fact. Brett Baty would have probably started this season in Syracuse had Jeff McNeil not gotten injured. Because I can tell you, Brett Baty was not figured into any major league plans until Jeff McNeil got hurt. Jeff McNeil, He's gone. They needed another infielder. There was already competition for a backup infielder spot between Donovan Walton and Luis Angel Acuna. And then Baty emerged, and they said, Baty's hitting like he's in midseason form. They said, oh, why don't we give the kid another chance? We can't deny his bat. And the numbers in spring training were very impressive for Brett Baty. He played 20 games this spring. He hit 353. 353. It's very hard to have a guy who has major league experience come to your spring training, hit 353 when you're in need of a positional presence, and he hits 353. It's very hard to deny him a spot on the team. He earned it. I'll tell you, he earned it. But he's probably going to be the last guy that I let dictate my opinions on who should make a team based on spring training, because Brett Baty, and that's not the first time he had a great spring training. He hit 325 in 2023. So you see the trend here? He always produces in spring training. When he was in the minors, always hitting the minors. But you know what? He can't hit in the majors. You know what Brett Baty is? He is a quadruple A player. And for those of you who don't speak baseball fluently, I'll tell you what a quadruple A player is. It's a player that's too good to be in triple A, but is not good enough to be in the major leagues. And that's Brett Baty. That boy is a quadruple A player. I know it's early in the season, but Baty's played 10 games. He's only batting 111. He doesn't have a homer. Well, a lot of the guys on the team don't have a home run, but he also doesn't have a single RBI, and he's come up to the plate with runners in scoring position a couple of times. And the only reason he even got a look beside McNeil being injured was because he played well in spring training. So much so, McNeil's injury factored into this, that they said, all right, we can't deny his bat, so why don't we put the man at second base, even though he's never played the position in his career. He couldn't even master his own position at third, but we'll put him at second and see how the kid does. And I'll tell you, the kid is failing. The Mets have a quadruple A player on their roster. And he's had chance after chance after chance after chance. It's time to get rid of him, especially when you've got Luis Angel Acuna on the bench rotting away when he needs reps. Now, granted, Luis Angel Acuna is not hitting the lights out by any means, but I'll take his 195 over Baty's 111. Unlike Brett Baty, Luis Angel Acuna has 2 stolen bases on the season, so he's more valuable as a base runner as well as an offensive player. And he's the better option defensively. Why is Brett Baty getting chances? I don't know. I get it. He had a great spring training. His bat was great in spring training. His bat was great in the games that don't count, though. How much more do we have to see from this guy before we decide to cut bait? And you want to hear something that's telling? If you go ahead and watch the tape, watch the games. Go on MLB.com and look up his at-bats in the film archive, whatever the heck they call that website where you can look up at-bats by player. Very rarely does Brett Baty ever get ahead in the count. He's, with the exception of maybe one at-bat all year, he always is behind in the count. And this is the guy we keep giving chances to? I don't get it. A lot of his at-bats look very uninspiring. The body language says a lot. Facial expressions say a lot. It's time. And you know what? Get rid of him sooner than later, because if you could DFA him or trade him sooner than later, maybe, just maybe, you can get something for him before you let him have even more at bats. His average is going to fall below like 0.85, and no team is going to want him when you DFA him, so you won't get anything for him. I'll even take cash for Brett Baty. We took cash for Alexander Canario, who should have been on this roster. Pittsburgh was smart enough to pick him up, even though they don't play him, but they have him. But it's time to end the Brett Baty experiment. Brett Baty is not a Major League Baseball player. He is a quadruple A player. And I'm going to stand by that. Now, when the Mets start their series against the Athletics tonight, maybe Baty could show me something. But I don't understand Carlos Mendoza. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Luis Angel Acuna should be getting reps. If Jeff McNeil was here and Baty was the backup, okay. But it does not serve Acuna, both in his development and keeping him warm for in-game situations and getting him reps, to just watch from the dugout while this moron has poor at-bat after poor at-bat. Acuna is young. He has promise. He has way more upside than Brett Baty. I don't care if the opposing starting pitcher is a right-hander and Baty's a left-hander. Clearly, Baty can't hit a righty just like he can't hit a lefty. So what difference does it make? Play Acuna. Because when McNeil comes back, one of them has to go back down to Syracuse, and it does not serve the young man Acuna to not play. He needs reps. He is the future of the franchise. But yet you keep him in the dugout so he can watch this moron strike out and have uninspiring at-bats. Don't even send him to the minors, because we know he's going to go to Syracuse, he's going to hit well, and then you're going to bring him back up, and it's going to be the same thing all over again. Get rid of Brett Baty. I am tired of him. I'm tired of seeing him play. I'm here in my studio yelling, and there's a reverb because I'm yelling because I'm frustrated watching this guy play. Whew. I think my blood pressure just went up a few points, but I don't want to see any more Brett Baty. Don't even send him down. DFA him. See what you can get for him, and count your losses. And I know people are going to say, "Well, Mark Vientos is not playing all that well either." Yeah, Vientos is hitting 119. Yeah, that's only 8 points above Brett Baty at 111. But the difference is, at least Vientos is better defensively. And at least there was a game a couple of days ago, back on Monday, where Vientos had 3 walks in a game. Baty can't even draw a walk. I have more faith in Mark Vientos than I do in Brett Baty. I'll be more patient on Vientos because last season, Vientos was hitting the lights out. Baty has never hit the lights out if it wasn't down in Port St. Lucie in games that don't count. I got to get off this topic before I have an aneurysm or some type of blood vessel in my head is going to pop. But moving on, folks, the Mets' next series is in Sacramento against the Athletics. For those of you who don't keep up with baseball or don't pay attention to that horribly mismanaged, horribly run team by crooked ownership, the Athletics now play in Sacramento. They have left Oakland after decades of baseball in the Bay Area. On that side of the Bay, the Giants will probably be in San Francisco to the day I die. But Oakland no longer has a baseball team. That team now plays at Sutter Home Park, which is also home to their AAA team. So that field, I can't imagine what type of shape it'll be in by the end of the year. But the Athletics tied for last in the AL West. That is a sorry group of baseball players. And much similar to my thoughts on the Miami Marlins roster, you look at quite a few guys in their bullpen and their starting lineup. the rotation and on their bench. Those are some guys who, if if they weren't playing for the Athletics and they were on some organization like the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Padres, the Phillies, if they were somewhere good, they would be in AAA on the farm and not in the show. But however, just because their roster is not as great as it could be, there are several players to watch on this Athletics team. Those three players are Tyler Soderstrom, Miguel Andujar, and Jacob Wilson. Of course, Tyler Soderstrom off to a very hot start. Cue up the graphic, please. That man is very dangerous. He's off to a 354 average, 6 home runs, and 10 RBI. Former Yankee Miguel Andujar, also another athletic to watch. Although he has no home runs, he's batting 289 with 3 RBI. And Jacob Wilson, now this is crazy. Jacob Wilson bats in the bottom of their order. He usually bats 7th. Wilson batting at 396 with 2 home runs and 7 RBIs. It's usually very rare that you get a guy who hits for a very high average like that at the bottom of the lineup, but that means that he is capable of helping the Athletics turn the lineup over to the top of the lineup, which is always a plus to have on your ball club. The Athletics, again, say what you will about their ownership and what they did to the fans in Oakland and all that good stuff. They're clearly in a rebuild. They'll be in Sacramento this year and next year, even though they're not claiming the team name. If you look, they're just the Athletics. They're not the Sacramento Athletics. Don't dare call them that because ownership will feel disrespected, even though they disrespected the good people of Oakland. But it's weird to me when I think of the Athletics because a couple of years ago they had all the talent in the world. How do you go from Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, Marcus Simeon to a glorified AAA team? I don't know. But this is not an A's podcast. You want that, go on YouTube and type in Athletics Baseball Podcast. I'm not going to sit here and discuss that, even though I know the answers. But then we get to the pitching matchups for this weekend. Tonight, Griffin Canning takes the hill. He looked really good in his last start against the Toronto Blue Jays. Of course, he didn't get the win statistically, but the Mets did win that game. That was the Jesse Winker 2 RBI game-tying triple that game on last Saturday. He'll go ahead up against J.P. Sears. On Saturday, it'll be David Peterson, who suffered from nausea, had to come out of the game on Sunday against the Blue Jays. He was suffering from nausea and blurred vision. He claims he felt like he was punched in the stomach, but he is said to be doing better and is not going to miss any time, not going on the injured list. And as of right now, this morning, the Athletics have not announced who their starting pitcher for Saturday is going to be. Most likely will be a bullpen game. And then Sunday, Kodai Senga goes up against our old pal, Luis Severino, who, my hat's off to Sevy. He went and got the bag. The Athletics were willing to pay him what he wanted while we were not, apparently. A lot of people, the baseball pundits, do say that the Athletics overpaid for Severino, but that's neither here nor there. Severino had a great season for the Mets last season and helped propel them in the second half to that run to the NLCS. However, he is 0-2 to start this season with an ERA over 4.50. But again, Senga versus Severino, that's the marquee matchup of this series this Sunday. My predictions for this series, I firmly believe the Mets are capable of another sweep. I'm going to go ahead and call 2 or 3 because you never know what can happen. It's just baseball. But if a sweep did happen, I would not be surprised. The Athletics are going to have the advantage because the Mets, even though they left to go to Sacramento late Wednesday, the Mets do have to travel, different time zone, so it's going to be rough. But I do believe the Mets have the ability to sweep the A's. I'm predicting 2 or 3, but don't be surprised if the Mets break out the broom. The Mets' schedule coming up is going to be very, very tiresome and grueling. The Mets' schedule is as follows. Of course, they start that 3-game set in Sacramento against the Athletics tonight. They play tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday before going to Minnesota on Monday to play a set against the Twins. That's a 3-game series, also playing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And with no off day, they come back home to Citi Field on Thursday. They play the St. Louis Cardinals Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then that very next day, Monday, they play the Phillies in a 3-game series, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The Mets' next off day is April 24th. Today's April 11th. So 13 games in 13 days. The Mets will be very busy. This is the first true grueling test of the Mets' young season. 13 games in 13 days in all these different cities with all this travel, going through these different time zones. It remains to be seen just how the Mets are going to manage. As far as coverage-wise, Metropolitan Report note for production, for those of you who are subscribed, thank you. Don't forget, if you like what you see or you disagree or agree with what I'm saying, but if you enjoy the content overall, you like the show, make sure you subscribe. But just a production note, because this series is going to end late on Sunday, I'm going to bring you some coverage of what happened on Tuesday, just to give us some breathing room from the late nights, because I do have to watch these games, by the way. So we're going to be, they play at 4 p.m. on Sunday, so I'll be able to bring you coverage back on Monday. We will be back with another episode of the Metropolitan Report on Monday to recap the A's series and to look forward to the Twins series and this nonstop circus schedule all the way up until the 23rd, when we can finally breathe and before the Mets go to Washington to start a series on the 25th. So, folks, again, if you like what you see, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment. If you know other Met fans, tell them about the Metropolitan Report. Once we get to 100 subscribers, I will have something special for the audience. Until then, I'll just keep watching, and I appreciate it. And again, I'll be back Monday. And until then, let's go Mets.